Hello and welcome back to the FIF podcast. It is me again, Nicholas Carroll. For some reason, I'm back hosting. Connor is not back from Toronto or wherever he is in the world. And I don't know, I've been given the gig again, somehow. It's unbeknownst to me, but here we go. I'm going to give it a shot. Let's see how this runs. And we've got the dream team back once again, following up from last week's epic pod. Joining us first, obviously has just woken up early in Melbourne, Australia. It is the one and only Vito Doria. Vito, how are you feeling this weekend?
Well, I've been feeling disappointed basically because of the latest Serie A results, but other than that, still good to talk about Serie A and the Azzurri with you guys.
Of course, and on the other end of the scale, probably someone a bit more happy after the weekend results, our favourite Neapolitan, who is no doubt celebrating from Napoli being at the top of the Serie A table. Can you believe it?
Of course, Nick.
It's Caterina Mira.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Happy to be with you guys again. It's been an interesting round, a lot of surprises, and I'm happy right now with Napoli at the top. I'm looking forward to talk about the Azzurri with you today.
Well, I'll say one thing. You're doing well to contain your enthusiasm, so we'll wait to get to Napoli for now. But guys, just to start things off a bit differently today, I thought we'd look at some of the highlights of the weekend Serie A results. So for both of you, what was the moment for you guys after watching the games that stood out to you as the kind of reached you in the heart, so to speak? What was the big moments for you? I'll start with you, Vito.
Well, for me, my memory of the round was Brian Cristante scoring the equaliser for Atalanta in the 2-2 draw against Juventus. The great irony in that is that when he was coming through the ranks at AC Milan, Max Allegri was his coach, and he was the one that granted Cristante his Serie A debut. So yeah, it was an interesting moment there. And now he's also celebrating his call-up to the Italian national team. So great way to celebrate a call-up.
For sure. And for you, Kat, what moments stuck out in your head?
One of the best moments probably was Marek Hamsik that found the first goal of the season finally, and it's just one goal below Diego Armando Maradona's scoring record of Napoli. So it's a great news for all Neapolitans, and we're looking forward to strike this record this year.
It's insane. I remember growing up as an Australian kid in the 90s in Australia, mind you, but to think that someone would be close to Maradona's record for Napoli, it was unthinkable when I was growing up, and now it's like it's going to happen. I mean, it's insane. Yeah. What is it? Is it exciting to have someone pass that, like such a godlike person?
It's a little bit weird for all Napolitans. Yeah. Maradona is the king.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing. But now Marek is our captain and he's leading the teams since 10 years now. So we are happy about it.
Beautiful. For me, I'd have to say actually seeing Alessandro Florenzi getting a goal, returning to the field obviously and getting a goal I thought that was quite almost a tear-jerking moment. It was good to see him back. I think he's a player with so much potential who's been so unlucky with injuries. So it was good to see him back on the field, performing and contributing to a win for the Giallorossi. So let's get into the weekend of results. And we have to start with, I think, Sunday night's match, which it would be hard to argue against that being the match of the season so far. Unbelievably incredible in that Juventus went up 2-0 within 24 minutes, and you would be a very brave person to bet against them 2-0 up. But somehow in Bergamo, Atalanta pulled it off. Mattia Caldara and then Brian Cristante, as Vito mentioned. Incredible match, incredible comeback. There was lots of controversy with VAR and everything. Vito, I'll throw it open to you. What did you think of the match? And did Juve lose it, or was it as a matter of Atalanta just showing too much fight and grit and truly earning that result?
It's going to come across as a bit of fence sitting, but it was a bit of both. But if I really had to pick one over the other, I would probably say that Atalanta showed enough determination, self-belief, as well as organisation to get the draw, because a lot of teams would have just given up easily or not take it to Juve even on their home turf. But Atalanta were able to get that deserved point, and they were very confident on the ball and confident in winning the ball back when they didn't have possession.
Kat, how did you see this? Were you impressed by Atalanta, or were you more disappointed by Juventus? And we have to mention Gonzalo Higuain here. You know, we talked about him last week, and we said, well, maybe he's going to have a bit of a stay on the bench. But he scored in the 24th moment. It looked like we were all going to look like we had egg on our face, but then obviously the comeback came back. So how did you see it all unplayed? Do you think Juventus were at fault more, or were Atalanta just that good at home?
I believe that Juventus strongly started the game, and we've seen Higuain scoring again, and it was a good 30 minutes for them, but I believe that Atalanta deserved the draw as the way of they played. The game was full of intensity, especially in the second half. They never gave up. Papu Gomez has been amazing and assisted for Cristante, and they stopped Juve, and that's one of the key points. Juve dropped points for the first time this season, and as Allegri also said, they risked to losing it on the counter. So it was probably a deserved draw also for Juventus. And also we have seen a double of VAR decision, and it was really probably one of the match of the league that will probably be remembered for everyone.
Of the match, as you said, Kat, we might remember as opposed to the amazing goal. We have to say it had a big role in the course of this match. So was it for the good, or was it to the detriment of Serie A, or for this match? Vito, what are your thoughts on it? Is it getting better? Is it going to help in the long run, or is it just a complete shambles at the moment?
Well, VAR has its critics, but I'm a fan of it. I think it's very important to have some sense of accountability for starters. And also, too, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist or very cynical about it, but, I think it's a good way to try and stamp out any potential match-fixing situations. If we have VAR, it's better to take the time to make proper decisions at that moment, instead of hearing it in the newspapers or on television shows saying, oh, the referee should have done this, the referee should have done that, blah, blah, blah. I think it's better that we get the decisions right on the day. And specifically about Atalanta-Juve, I think it was justified to disallow Juve's third goal. And if it wasn't for the VAR technology, that goal would have stood, and Papu Gomez would have been more furious after he got the elbow from Lichtsteiner.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, from my point of view, Lichtsteiner was, if anything, lucky not to get a red for that. But then you've got also the penalty that that was reviewed and not overturned. Katarina, how do you see it? Do you think it's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to, a lot of the times, the subjective opinion of the person watching the video. So is VAR a good thing? And how did you see it play out in that match specifically?
Yeah, after the game, I read a lot of controversial opinion from journalists, from former footballers, from coaches, and some of them saying, no, it's a good thing. And others say it's only a waste of time, or it's no longer football, it's no longer a sport. But I believe that at the moment is helping a lot the referee in a lot of situations. We need to consider that the final decision is always made by a human being, so there will be always mistakes. It's impossible that he will never fix everything on the game, but he will help, is helpful, and maybe the only wrong decision was made yesterday in the second episode, where the referee was, of course, called to evaluate the penalty, and they made a wrong decision in my opinion to give in that. But Berisha, as we saved the result. But we have seen yesterday probably there were also it's a pro, I believe, for football right now, and it's in its experimental phase, so probably they could change also some rules. And so in my point of view, now the game is being more transparent, so I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that all three of us are actually kind of in favor with VAR, because from what I read, there's a lot of negatives going around the Serie A community, and I can understand that. But I think something that people have to remember is that it's not brought out to be a perfect system. Particularly, Serie A is one of the first, the pioneers of this in a league, in one of the biggest leagues in the world. Let's remember. So, it's not brought out to be a perfect system. And as Katarina said, it's always going to have that subjective element of a human being watching the video. But you can only hope that it's going to be for the better of the league in the long term. And hopefully these kind of discrepancies will, come less and less in as time goes by, and particularly the time it takes to have it completed will be shortened. So it's a wait and see thing. I know there's a lot of anger about it, and to be honest, I think a lot of the comments from the likes of Massimiliano Allegri saying things like it's going to become, the length of a baseball game and stuff like that, I really, from my point of view, I really don't see how those comments help, and I think it's at the detriment of the league. And I think at least we're 7 games into the league, and they need to let the league actually have a go at getting this right, because for the last 10, 20, 30 years, Serie A has been continuously just brought down by, conspiracies, as Vito mentioned, about match fixing, and, some granted and some not so much. But, I think transparency is the key, as Katarina said, and, the more transparency Serie A has, the better for the league in the long term. So hopefully we can get through this area, and in the next couple of seasons we'll have Serie A leading the way in world football in this area. Well, so Juventus lost 2 points, so we might as well go straight to the league leaders, and I'll put this straight to you, Katarina. It was another convincing win, 3-0, top of the league. How does it feel? What did you think of the match against Cagliari? Take us through it.
Yeah, It was another good performance from the Azzurri, and a deserved result, and also a little bit easy. Was easy managed about from the guys, and they established also a new record of the club with 19 good results in a row, and that's a good news for Sarri. And indeed, the last defeat of the season has been in February against Atalanta. So I believe also that another good sign is the goals that Napoli are scoring. We are now in 11 games, they scored 33 goals. And we are seeing that it's crazy. It's difficult to watch Napoli now scoring less than 3 goals per match. It's something crazy. But the thing is that now is coming the tough month and the tough week, I could say, because Napoli will go to Rome against Roma. We need to go in Manchester against Manchester City, and then back to Napoli against Inter. So all in 1 week. So that will be a tough week for Sarri, and we will see how strong they are. Now we can talk about it after these 3 games and see how they managed.
Indeed. Vito, we don't want to go too much on Napoli because we've spoken about them a lot this season, but there's a stat out there that they've scored more goals per match than any other club in Europe's top 5 leagues. They are, we all know they're absolutely amazing in attack. Do they deserve, they're top of the league, do they deserve to be favourites for the Serie A now? What do you think?
Well, I don't want to curse them too much, but based on what we've seen so far, I think they deserve to be the favourites for the Scudetto. Whereas in previous years, we've seen Juventus and then Inter before them dominate the league, but most of the performances were scrappy and they didn't really have a distinctive style of play. Whereas Napoli, you can say that there is a clear style of play, there is a philosophy, and there's that balance between defending and attacking, and they've really got that strong attacking prowess. It's not like they have to grind out results. So that's what I like about Napoli in general. As for the game against Cagliari, I think it just went to show what the quality between Napoli and Cagliari is like, because Napoli is just far ahead of them. And they made the game look like a training exercise. The second half in particular, I think it was just a case of trying to set up Callejon for a goal, because he had a few chances, but he didn't score. And in other cases, you'd probably see one of the other players score a goal, or even Callejon adding to that goal tally.
Yeah, for sure. So that it leaves us on a nice little break for the international break now with a leader in Serie A that's not Juventus. It's amazing. I just kind of want to take a screenshot of the table, not to insult any Juventus fans out there, but it's nice to see something a bit different in Serie A. So let's just enjoy it while we can, because who knows what's going to happen. As I said, we're not going to focus too much on Napoli this week, but we'll go straight to one of the other big matches of the weekend, let's say. And it was AC Milan at home to Roma, and Milan copping another loss, losing 2-0 at home. Roma winning with a 72nd goal to Edin Dzeko, an absolute screamer, I believe, from outside the box. And then, as I'd mentioned as my highlight, Alessandro Florenzi basically tapping in a rebound to get their second and taking all 3 points for them. Hakan Çalhanoğlu got a 80th minute second yellow and a red card for Milan. Guys, I know we spoke a lot about Milan last week, so I don't want to go too much into the issues at the moment, but briefly, just from both of you, we said last week we need to give Montella more time. Are we still happy to be saying that now, or have we changed opinions based on this weekend's performance? Kat, we'll start with you and then go to Vito.
I'm not changing my opinion because Milan played well. It was probably one of the best performances by Milan this season. So yeah, since Diego's goal, Montella's team played better probably than Roma, and I can see that Montella is working more on the defense, and we've seen also Borini that was excellent yesterday. And so overall, I cannot say that Milan was anonymous at all. Unfortunately, maybe they probably need to work more on the finishing of the action, but they did well, and they need to improve maybe more on that. And I'm scared that changing the coach now, it would be only negative for the team, and also not giving the right continuity for their play. So I know that the derby is coming, and if they probably lost that, I do not hope for Montella future will depend on that. He really needs maybe some more time, I believe.
Yeah, it's a tough line of fixtures for Montella, because after that loss last week, he's had Roma, and after the break he's going to have Inter. They are two tough fixtures to have straight after you've been copping this criticism after losing to Sampdoria, as we spoke about last week. But as you said, Kat, when you look at the chances created, they were creating, and they look quite good. They had 18 total shots to Roma's 11. However, they only had 3 on target to Roma's 6. So if they could be more clinical in front of goal, it looks like it's the start of something. There's certainly some excitement. I loved seeing Andrea Silva out there. I think he's something special, and if Montella can use him properly, I think there's big things about this guy. I don't want to talk up too much, but I don't know. I feel like there's something here. And obviously we know there is, I think Montella needs to decide on the defense. That's a key thing, whether there's the whole 3-man defense versus a 4-man defense, because the 3 doesn't look like it works at the moment. But Vito, I don't want to go too much into it. As I mentioned, what do you think? Have your opinions changed from last week, or do you think there's improvement? Is he going to eventually get there?
Well, as you two mentioned before, it's a matter of him getting his strikers to put the chances away. Perhaps instead of starting Kalinic, maybe Patrick Cutrone could start a bit more, because he had a good start in pre-season and even early in the campaign, both in the Europa League and in Serie A. So perhaps Kalinic, he needs a good wake-up call, or kick up the backside perhaps. But I still believe Milan needs to get that right balance in midfield, whether Manuel Locatelli deserves more chances in midfield, or does Montella need to consider, using Çalhanoğlu and Bonaventura in the same side, or use one instead of the other? And also, how does Suso fit into there? Because Suso didn't play, and Çalhanoğlu's out for the derby, so he's got the options, but it's taking probably more time than what the Rossoneri fans would like for Montella to get the balance right. And I really believe he does need a result in the Milan derby if he's going to hold on to his future. But in saying that, I think he definitely deserves it until at least January, maybe get an additional signing. And otherwise, if this bad finishing continues and it's not a problem with the build-up play, then in hindsight, I think it'd be easier to say they should have been more eager and splashed out the money for an Andrea Bellotti or Aubameyang from Dortmund.
For sure. I'm with you 100% from my point of view, Vito. I think Montella, particularly the result that Milan got with the squad that he had last season, I think he deserves more time to have a proper say in this team, how it develops. So just quickly, guys, I'll just get a yes or no from both of you. We just got a question coming in. They've said Paulo Sousa to Milan if they lose to Inter and Juve and they don't see any good football from Milan. Paulo Sousa to AC Milan, yes or no? Vito and then Kat.
I would go yes. I think better him than Ancelotti.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
And Kat? Yes, okay.
Yeah, why not?
I'm a bit more skeptical, but
I'm a Matelas fan, so probably keep at least until January, as Vito said. So
fair enough.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay, guys, I said I don't want to focus too much on Milan, so let's go to the other side, to the winners, Roma. We spoke a little bit last week more about Di Francesco, and he's made a positive start to the season, in his debut season at the helm there. But 2-0 away to Milan, and they've only lost the one match against Inter, and as I think I mentioned last week, they dominated for a lot of that match. They have a game in hand. They're on 15 points. They are doing very well. But from my point of view, I watch them play. For me, they don't impress me overly. They don't look like they're playing the best football, but they are getting results, which makes me think, I don't know, Di Francesco is building something here. It's positive and it's happening so quickly, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? What are your thoughts about Edin Dzeko particularly? For me, I thought when Mohamed Salah had left, he had created so many chances for Dzeko, and he created the most assists for one striker than anyone else in Serie A. So I was really concerned that he wouldn't be able to go on with it, and he's just taken it in his stride. And at times he doesn't even need someone to provide it. He just gets the ball and just shoots, as we saw for their opener on the weekend. He looks like he's playing with a confidence that I don't think I've ever seen him play with. So what do you think about the way Roma's playing in general? Kat, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I know that Di Francesco is doing a great job because Roma didn't let down their guard for all the match. He was always careful, focused. They didn't stop in creating chances. They blocked AC Milan chances as well. And maybe one of the key was also that Pellegrini came in for Strootman, and that helped the midfield a lot. And also Edin Dzeko scoring. Dzeko was crucial again, and the jealousy was always disappointing about him, that he was only scoring against the little teams and not in the big games. And he finally made it, and so he's becoming more than fundamental for the Di Francesco. And also surprising, he scored his 7th goal of the season in 6 games, and that's a good sign for the team.
Indeed,
I reckon this is.
Yeah, sorry. Over to you.
I jumped the gun. It doesn't matter. No, I was just gonna say that about Dzeko. I must say, I reckon this is probably his best form since he was even at Wolfsburg. I remember when they won the German Bundesliga, they had a Brazilian striker there called Grafite, and they formed a great partnership, and Dzeko racked up some pretty high numbers for them. But in the last season with Roma and so far this season, he's just playing with greater confidence. He's much more prolific than what he was when he first arrived in Italy. And what I like about Dzeko is he's not really that much of a statue. Although he's a number 9, for a guy who's over 30, he's still got some decent mobility about him. And in Di Francesco's philosophy, you would usually need someone to be more mobile instead of be that sort of lumberjack or tree trunk centre forward. So it's good that Dzeko is still keeping up those numbers. although Di Francesco probably hasn't really brought out his true philosophy yet, or the players haven't really implemented that style clearly, they're still getting the wins, they're still scoring goals. And Di Francesco, he's also getting squad rotations right too, because he's managed to fit in Bruno Perez and Alessandro Florenzi both on the right side. He's given Lorenzo Pellegrini some game time. So in terms of squad choices, he's getting that right. Another thing I also mention is that Alisson is playing well in goal. And usually I'm not really impressed with Roma's goalkeepers, especially in the time that I've been watching Serie A. But based on what I've seen of him so far, he's a very good shot stopper and he has top reflexes.
Yeah, I agree.
100%. It's as you said, Vito, it looks like the formation they're playing, and they have a lot of depth, which is good. And we haven't necessarily seen that from Roma in recent seasons. So there's a lot to be excited. Obviously, Florenzi is back, and I'm very excited about that because I personally like him as an individual. But guys, where do Roma rate now? The community, let's say, has talked up Milan so much in the preseason, and I guess rightly so. When you spend that kind of money, you need to deliver in some way. But not Lazio, I'm jumping the gun. Roma, they're going about their business relatively quietly, and as I said, they have a game in hand. They're on 15 points to Milan's 12 points, and they have a game in hand. So where do you rank them compared to the likes of a Milan or even an Inter? Are they, I think we kind of touched on it last week, but should we still be considering them as one of the favorites for the top three? Or do you think the likes of an Inter or Milan or even a Lazio are down the line on the long term gonna beat them out? Kat, we'll go to you and then Vito.
Yeah, no. I will think they could fight for a Champions League spot this year. And Di Francesco is doing a great work, and this quick time, I said last week that I didn't expect this start from Roma. I was so surprised about his work. And he has a good chances also to do a good rotation with all the players. And yeah, he could fight for a Champions League spot, as well as Lazio, probably this year.
Vito, what do you think? AC Milan or Roma? Who deserves to be the favorite at the moment for a top three, let's say?
At the moment, you definitely have to say Roma. The game in hand helps, but Di Francesco is doing a much better job with the players at his disposal as opposed to Montella, who is still trying to find his way. And also, I think with his style of coaching, Montella still needs to sort a few things out, whereas Di Francesco is probably getting his ideas through clearer than what the Milan coach has. So, as I've said in the previous podcast, I still think the best is yet to come with the Giallorossi. The Scudetto might be too much out of their way. I don't think it's realistic for them, but another year of Champions League action, I think it's very probable.
Well, guys, just before we get to the next Serie A results from the weekend, just quickly, last week we talked about Sampdoria. We pumped them up and they let us down. We didn't do too well. We jinxed a few teams. But one thing we did get right was with the Champions League, we thought this was Serie A's time. The representatives would get it right. And the teams we've already talked about, Napoli beat Feyenoord 3-1. Juventus got a win. What was the score? 2-0 over Olympiacos. Had a mind blank. And then Roma with a small victory. I thought it might have been bigger, but victory is a victory. 2-1 over Qarabag. So 3 wins for the Champions League representatives, which is good for Serie A, good for the coefficient, even though it doesn't matter as much now that there's going to be a 4th position next season. But anyway, let's just stick with the positives. And let's go to, we've talked about Roma. Now let's go stick with the capital city and go to Lazio, because they are just killing it. Another incredible performance, 6-1 over Sassuolo. That's after winning 2-0 in their Europa League match, after a 3-0 win over Verona last week in Serie A. The goals are just flying in for them, and their players are just, I mean, Ciro Immobile we've spoken about, but then you've got Luis Alberto, who is just, he looks like a star when he is in form. Lazio, what, you know, I don't want to keep comparing teams, but we spoke about Roma, but then we speak about Lazio, who they're surely one of the most consistent teams in Serie A. Vito, what do you think? Where do they stand? We've spoken about AC Milan, Roma. Where does Lazio stand? Because they seem to just continually produce.
I reckon they're definitely up for another Europa League spot, and depending on how the other teams perform, as well as how injuries affect them, I reckon Lazio could even challenge for a 4th Champions League spot. But so far, based on the performances, they're looking very promising and very exciting. Usually in the last few years, they had Vladimir Petkovic and Stefano Pioli, so there seemed to be a sense of second-year blues with those two coaches. But with Simone Inzaghi, he's taken things into his stride, and he's still getting the Lazio squad to perform on a consistent basis, which is great to see. As you just mentioned, Ciro Immobile is in sensational form. He's got 9 Serie A goals for the season. And Luis Alberto is another revelation from the Lazio team, because he's one of the most creative players in that team. So I've been impressed with the way he's playing, especially with the way he creates chances and the goals he's scored too, especially the free kick that he scored. That was a fantastic strike. So from an individual perspective, Immobile and Luis Alberto are the standouts, but I really just like Simone Inzaghi's way of coaching. In a way, he's got that mix of traditional Italian coaching values, and he's mixing them with a more modern style. It's not just defense, counter-attack, and sit on a 1-0. I mean, they defend deep, they do counter-attack quick, but they keep on producing goals, and that's what I like to see. It's not just about parking the bus. It's, you know, keep things tight, but when there's a chance to score, take your chances, and that's what Lazio have been doing so far.
100%. There's nothing much more exciting than watching Lazio on the counter-attack. They are so thrilling. They produce, they beat so many players on the ball. I think in terms of successful dribbles, they're at the top. Luis Alberto, behind Papu Gomez, Alejandro Papu Gomez, has the second most successful dribbles in the league. He is incredibly creative and exciting when he's on the ball creating, and it was good to see Stefan De Vrij back and scoring a goal. Him even in defense, and that's a key. They are very strong in defense. I think he leads the league in interceptions, actually, the most per game in Serie A, at least. Kat, your thoughts about Lazio in general? We have spoken about them even last season. We've spoken about how they're so much of a team that works so well together under Simone Inzaghi. Where do you rate them compared to the likes of Roma, AC Milan, and Inter, all those teams that are, you know, fighting behind, let's say, Juventus and Napoli?
Yeah, I agree with Vito that I can see an Europe spot this year. You know, probably more Europa League than Champions League. I don't know. At the moment, it's difficult, the comparison with Roma, because they are both doing great. And Roma is a new coach, and they're doing well. Lazio with Inzaghi, they're working. They impressed me, especially in the first half against Napoli. They were amazing. And maybe they need only to be, they have been unlucky with different injuries. They only probably need to be a little bit more consistent in some games. Like with Spal, they only made a draw with against Spal. They were the first games, if I'm not very wrong. But they beat Milan, they beat Juventus in the Supercoppa, and so it's enjoyable to see them. And I'm looking forward to see them against Juventus in 2 weeks. And about the comparison, I don't really know. I probably will keep and I reward Di Francesco work right now between the two teams of the capital. Yeah.
Well, I've got to say, from my point of view, it's been a very long time since there's been so much, I don't know, excitement or promise, potential, let's say, from the top teams in Serie A, not just 2 or 3 teams, but 5 or 6 teams. And it's going to kind of all culminate to the next round. We have an international break, of course, but the next round to come, we see the likes. Juventus will play Lazio, as Caterina mentioned. We've got Roma at home to Napoli. We have the Milan derby. It's some incredible matches, some of the top teams going head-to-head, and we're definitely going to see where some of the teams lie against each other. So a lot to look forward to. So, you know, get through this international break, do whatever you need to, drink, eat, just get through it, and then you've got a lot of exciting Serie A action to watch. But not to get too ahead of ourselves, we'll stick with Serie A, and we won't go too much into the other results. But Vito, I have to mention it. I'm sorry, but we talked up Sampdoria last week. We said, you know, they're possibly the favourites to get that last Europa spot, and Udinese beat them 4-0. Explain yourself. What happened?
Explain myself. Well, if I was in Udine, I'd be giving those players a good kick up the backside. Especially Edgar Barreto. That was shocking. See, that was the thing that really decided the game. When Udinese went 1-0 up, it came through a penalty, and it was from Christian Pugioni's mistake to charge off his line as far as he did. It was very unnecessary. And then Edgar Barreto to foul Kevin Lasagna from behind. You know, it was for his second yellow card, but that challenge was worthy of a straight red. So that really impacted on Sampdoria's performance a lot. The only excuse some can have, aside from Barreto being sent off, is that 3 of Udinese's goals came from penalties. So it wasn't like Udinese had destroyed us in open play. In saying that, though, a 4-0 loss is ugly, regardless if you finish with 11 men or 10 men. So I think it's an ideal wake-up call that if you get a good result against AC Milan, you can't slack off against the lower teams. And I hope it's a way that the players keep grounded, they stay humble, and they keep faith in Giampaolo's philosophy. If they do that, I'm sure that the results will continue, but it's to do with that common sporting cliche. You've got to take things one game at a time. And a club like Samp, who hasn't had success since the 1980s and 1990s, it's important to keep your head focused on the job and also to stay humble. And once we do something exciting, then we can celebrate. But after one top win, you've got to keep up the consistency. You've got to keep performing. I mean, you can't just take an opposition lightly because they're near the bottom of the table.
100%. Stern words from Vito. And while you're on a roll, I might stick with you for Torino against Verona. Torino up 2-0 at half-time. Goals to Iago Falque and Mbaya Niang. And somehow drew the match with goals in the 87th and one in injury time. Gianpaolo Pazzini getting the equaliser. Vito, I know you wanted to talk about this. How did they not win this? What happened?
One of the things that helped Verona was that Andrea Bellotti came off injured with less than 10 minutes to go. And by then, Sinisi subbed, so that made a big difference for Verona. What I did like is that, although I've been a huge critic of Fabio Pecchia, I did like his choices for the Giallo-Blue team. It looked like he's got his team in balance. He's got proper roles for the players. They're in position. And although Pazzini didn't start again, he did come on as a sub, and he scored from the penalty spots. And since his sump days, I've been a big fan of Pazzini, even though he's had his critics and his poor spells. I still have fond memories and great admiration for him. So if Verona can perform like they did and maybe get a few wins, hopefully it's because of his ability to score, his experience, and of course, he got it from the penalty spot. But if he can add a few more goals in open play, that would be fantastic for him.
Okay, I've tried to be good because, you know, I'm hosting and all, so I haven't mentioned them too much, but just quickly, Inter has quietly snuck up to equal Juventus on the Serie A table. They were away to Benevento, goals to Marcelo Brozovic, who has been kind of outside the team, and many Inter fans, I have to admit, including myself, haven't been too pleased that he's still around and getting game time, but he produced the goods on the weekend. But hey, Benevento scored their second goal in Serie A, so
yeah,
congratulations to them. Not to take the piss. Sorry, I don't mean to take the piss, but Benevento. Come on, 1 goal to Inter. That's not too bad. That's all right.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for them because they tried. They tried during the game. I saw the game and they really tried. They took 2 posts probably, if I remember. And yeah, I was impressed that they keep and trying. But Inter managed well the game. It was probably not one of the best performances of the season, but I was impressed about Brozovic's goal. Well, then they surprised me, and it was their 6 wins in 7 games. So now they're second with Juventus. So they're right in the right track ahead of the Milan derby. They had probably had some difficulties in managing the game in just some minutes, but they only need to be probably more careful, but they produce good chances, and so they surely need to improve in certain situations, but they are on the right road, I believe.
Well, just quickly, I'll stick with you, Kat. I know I'm you know, I hear a lot of amongst the Inter circles around about the likes of Brozovic, and there's a lot of negativity that goes around about him. What are your thoughts from a neutral perspective? Does he deserve to be in that starting lineup, or?
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite. I believe. For example, yesterday Icardi didn't play so well, so I don't know. It's not so consistent, Brozovic. That's the main point. But it's a good player. Yesterday was good. Probably Spalletti is working more with him and to keeping him in the right pace for all the 19 minutes, and so probably will give us more surprises during the season. We don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's one of those players where we all know he has that ability in his moment to produce something special, but it's how often he can do it. And as the last 2 or 3 seasons have shown, it hasn't been too often, and his attitude has somewhat strayed from where a club would want it to be. But anyway, you know, it could be positive from here on out, and you know, it could be the Spalletti influence over there at Inter. Just quickly to run through the other games, Bologna beat Genoa 1-0. 1-0. I had some comments about my pronunciation. You know, I've got that really bad Aussie accent, and I can't pronounce names like that. So my apologies, Dov, if you're listening. Some other matches: Spal 1-0 against Crotone. Chievo beat Fiorentina 2-1. We spoke about Fiorentina a bit last week. We weren't all too fond of them, and yeah, they didn't really prove us wrong at all. And that's pretty much does the Serie A for last weekend. But guys, it is the international break. We've seen the Azzurri team named. Can't say there's any too big surprises anywhere that I can see anyway. But Vito, your general thoughts about the team? Is there anyone that you think should be there that isn't, or that is there that shouldn't be?
Well, it's quite interesting. After looking at the initial squad Ventura picked, it just seemed to be a case of same old, same old. He just wanted to pick the same type of team, keep it like a club side and maintain familiarity, which is not something that I'm thrilled with, because he was brought in to implement more youth, and I'm not convinced that he's really bringing that youthful revolution. Having said that, since he has announced that squad, there have been a few players we've had to pull out through injury. So particularly in central midfield, he's got to bring in players like Roberto Gagliardini, Niccolò Barella from Cagliari, and Brian Cristante. So that's going to be interesting to see if Ventura gives them chances to play and if they perform well against Albania, Macedonia. So that'd be quite interesting. As for certain selections, I'm still not sold about picking Davide Astori and even Marco Parolo, despite his 2 goals on the weekend. I think the average international players. And the forwards, well, Belotti dropped out of the squad. He's been replaced by Roberto Inglese, who I think is decent, but nothing out of the ordinary. And Eder and Gabbiadini, based on club form, don't deserve selection. I reckon Mario Balotelli's been scoring a few goals for Nice. Say what you want about his attitude, but I think he's slowly redeeming himself. Not quite there yet, but he looks like he's on the mend now that he's 27. And the clown himself, Simone Zaza, after his ridiculous dancing at Euro 2016, I think he's regaining his confidence. He's regaining his confidence, and he's starting to score goals for Valencia now. He's got 6 La Liga goals this season, and only Messi's got more goals than him. So if you're second to Lionel Messi, you can't be that bad, and surely you deserve a call-up for international duty too.
Yeah, it's as you said, Ventura came in and you thought there was going to be a bit of a different feel, a bit of youth, new energy, enthusiasm about this team, but Kat, it hasn't really got us too excited. And as kind of Vito alluded to, you've got the likes of Eder in there, who is obviously not performing at club level, whether or not that's his fault or the club's. But then you look at the likes of Andrea Basali, 35 years old. Is it time to move these players on and look at the next generation? When is the youth going to be given a proper chance at developing into the next formidable Italian team?
Yeah, and he's working with youngers, and in the future perspective, I love that. I really love that. But the thing now, they need to be concentrated on the qualification. That scares me. Unfortunately, I'm really, really sorry for Belotti, who was not able to join the team this week, and hope for a quick recovery. And also today, Pellegrini was out, De Rossi was out. So it will not be so simple for the Azzurri. And I'm happy that he chose Inglese, because I think it's a great guy, and he's working a lot with Chievo this year. I'm also happy that he picked Zappacosta, and Verdi is probably the news of the team, and I don't know if he's going to play, probably not, but I look forward how Ventura is going to manage all these new choices of the last minutes. That's the thing. And that will be the big issue of the week. Probably was so unlucky with all these injuries, and I really hope that with all these changes, the team will not be so confused, but they try to be together and to finally get this qualification. Otherwise, it will be a nightmare for all the nation, all the country to not get the World Cup this year.
Yeah, it's an incredible situation that Italy's in, and Kat, I don't know if you realize, but me and Vito are dying here, because We have the Socceroos, the Australian national team, who are in a playoff of their own, but not only do they have to play off in Asia, but then the winner of that playoff has to play off against CONCACAF. So there's 2 playoffs that Australia has to go through. So I have, well, me and Vito both have Australia on one hand playing off twice, and then Italy looking like they're going to a playoff. I want to go to Russia, and I'm having heart attacks all across. Yeah. What's going on? Is Italy actually at risk of not making the World Cup? What's happening?
That's the thing. I don't know. I really don't know.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
The circumstance that Italy had against Spain, I mean, it was, you can't say unfair. I mean, they have a system, but it was very harsh, you have to say. Are you worried that they might not make it, or are you?
Yeah, I'm worried. Really worried. I would like to go to Russia this year. I really worry about that. It will not be so easy. Also because Panucci is the coach of Albania, if not get wrong.
Yeah, he's replaced Dibiase.
Yeah.
What do you think, Vito? Are you struggling like me? Because I'm not doing well here. I'm not doing well at all.
Yeah, well, from an Australian perspective, I definitely want to see the Socceroos qualify. Although Australia lacks the depth it had 10 to 20 years ago, I would still like Australia to make the World Cup and actually do something just for the sake of spiting the AFL and NRL diehards. I love my AFL too, but you know, just to say to the naysayers, we told you so, we told you so, I think that would be a good perspective. As for Italy, I think, look, I was keen to give Ventura a chance because I was convinced that he would bring in the youth a bit more, even though quite a few of them have been inconsistent or they've only had 1 year of Serie A experience. I thought he was going to be a bit more convincing and more determined to play these kids. But what's shown to me so far is that the federation has only hired him because he was a cheap option, and to get another coach would have cost more money for the federation. So I really think he looks out of his depth at international level. And fortunately, there is this seeding system, so Italy does avoid Portugal, which is good. But it's these kind of situations where Italy has a habit of just making it hard for themselves. So hopefully the Azzurri do get through the playoff stage. And to be honest, it looks like, based on what we've seen so far, the Azzurri will just make up the numbers at the World Cup. I'm not holding my breath for anything. I would just enjoy the tournament for what it is and not have my heart too emotionally invested in the World Cup, especially in the Azzurri, because I'm not really confident in the way this squad's been progressing and how it's been evolving under Ventura.
It is a shame because there is a lot of talent there, and maybe it's just a little too early for them to proper develop. But as Vito said, you have to say there is some question marks over Ventura's management, and let's be honest, not making the World Cup is simply not an option for Italy. It just should not ever happen. So let's hope we don't have to face that reality. Vito, I'll probably be back in Australia when that all happens, so we'll be arm in arm. Hopefully all is good. Australia and Italy will get through, and we'll be cheering on for Russia. But guys, let's. I think we've gone on long enough. We'll bring it to an end. Thank you again for joining me in my filling in this hosting role. It's been very easy with you two on board. Thanks everyone who has joined us. A special shout out to Jax, who joins us every week and is always commenting. So thank you, Jax, for joining us and asking questions and always commenting. It's great to have people live online. We very much appreciate it. So we like to see everyone joining. If you're listening on the podcast, remember we do stream live on YouTube, so be sure to check us out. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go on, because you can see the likes of Katerina, myself, talking about everything to do with Serie A, Vieri, Dov, everyone. There's, from all around the world. It's all good. And Vito will be joining as soon as I'm back in Australia. So he doesn't know yet, but he will be. So guys, before we leave, quickly, Vito, where can people find you if they want to find you on social media?
Well, I've got my fan page on Facebook, so that's just under my name, Vito Doria. Otherwise, there's my Twitter handle at Vito C. Doria. So check out my tweets.
And Kat?
You can find me on Twitter as Caterina Mirra or on Facebook as well as Caterina Mirra.
You can also find me on Facebook at Nicholas Carroll or on Twitter at Nick Z Carroll. Thank you everyone again for joining us. We've got an international break, so we might be back next week. I'm not sure what Connor's doing. Maybe he'll have a surprise pod to talk about international football. I know we're very invested in the Azzurri's future, so stay tuned for that. We'll definitely let you know what's happening there. But I'm sure the next time it won't be me hosting, so it's been a pleasure. But I'll be handing over back to our reliable and jovial Irishman, Connor Clancy. So we look forward to having him back. But until next time, from Vito, from Katerina and myself, for now.